And my mic is not quite on.
There we go.
Hello. Hi. We're education-based, and we so often stand in between teachers and the end of their school day or right before lunch. So this position, because we are the last set of speakers before lunchtime, so we don't take that without a grain of salt. So we want to also acknowledge that there's probably sore butts in the room. So we're going to do this activity, but it's not one of those icebreakers, go talk to somebody. So just join me and stand up for a second. And like maybe crack your back if you want or whatever. All right. So if you have something in your hands, just drop your arms by your side. Just throw them down by your side. Roll your shoulders or something maybe. And then cross your arms. And think to yourself, how long have you, maybe hours or days, how many hours in your life have you had your arms like this? Probably a lot. Okay, now just drop them again. And cross your arms the opposite direction. How's it feel, right? So this is what it's like to be new to a company. This feeling is what it's like to be a sixth grader again. This feeling is what it's like to be ready to get into college. And you're like, I have no idea what my body's telling me. It feels weird. Okay, and you can drop your arms again and take a seat, because we're going to get into some fun things for the last half an hour.
27 minutes.
27 minutes. Thanks for that. I'm Charlie Kuhn, Rosalind Wiseman, and about 5.5, 6 years ago, I made a change, a first career change in life at the age of 23. I left. I left a career.
We think he was 24, actually.
24. I left a career in finance to commit myself to character programs. I think as a society, we need to hold ideas and be really hard on ideas and easy on people. And we don't get a chance to practice that. And when we cast social skills in this light that's like, some people have them, they're just intuitive, or they're not. I think it does a disservice to this whole conference, to leadership, to diversity, to equity trainings. And if we believe that these truly are skills, then skills can be taught, they can be practiced, they can be worked on, and they can be improved. And that's what we're in the business of doing. So I committed myself to doing this. And an example of this would be, you know, in those professional development trainings or the workshops that you all have to go to, and there's just always that group of people in the back of the room, and I'm not singling out the people in the back of this room, that are like with their heads down, or they bury themselves in their laptop. Those are my people, because I think that those are the critical ones, are the ones that have probably a rich experience that informs why they're like that, and I will happily go sit with them. So it was my calling, and we had an opportunity to work together. So Rosalind, I have to give compliments here.
We'll see how he does.
I have to. So this woman has, 23 years
Something like that.
Education, has really led the way in first talking with students about where they get turned off by this work, where they get excited by this work. And students have always led her, and students continue to lead us in our roles. And she's turned that into success with 2 different books and these bestseller lists, the New York Times bestseller that most folks recognize as being important and worthwhile. And we've chose to work together, and I've chose to be her business partner because of the work that she does and the way that she does it, bringing people close together, grasping words again that have been watered down and lost. And there's no one else that's doing it like this. So it's also my pleasure to introduce Rosalind, who's going to help us get going.
And one of the things, excuse me, that I love the Charlie the most, this is about traveling. Hold on one second. Did you steal my water? You stole my water already. All right.
Placed it here.
Is this. he loves to go where the stink is. You know, he loves where he goes where people who don't want to be there, he goes to where those people are. And that's one of the most amazing things about being in consulting, is going where people don't necessarily feel comfortable. So I've been working in education for a long time, but here's the thing. One of the things that we know is that to be uncomfortable is important, because that's where you learn. And so I also want to say as well, is that one of the things that we really focus on is, you know, with all of the Mean Girls stuff, and Mean Girls just came out as a musical on Broadway, so I've been really busy with that, is that people for years have been saying to me, oh, you know, the workplace is sort of like Mean Girls, you need to know this. And they give me these long stories. And so what is really important, can you up my mic, please, whoever's doing maybe, is that when we really think about this, is the workplace like high school? Is the workplace like middle school? And lots of people think that, but at the same time, we also think that, you know, in schools, we generally think that talking to kids in demeaning and humiliating ways is not going to get them to want to be at school. It's not going to get them to be creative or to be motivated. But we tend to think in the workplace that adults can be treated that way, and they just have to take it. And so that's one of the things that we want to think about today is, well, why? You know, why did we get there? And also, what can we do about it? Because we really are in the business of identifying what the situation is, but then providing concrete solutions and strategies for what we do. And also, we are in a situation where people have been voicing the discontent and the misery or the things that they have not liked in the workplace, and that they've been really quiet for so long. That is also the case, of course, in schools. But what's important is how we do it. How do we frame the conversation? How do we give voice to our experiences? And how do we talk about it in a way that people can be engaged? Even the people that are really uncomfortable because they're feeling like they're being quote unquote attacked. And so that is the space in which we operate in all different kinds of ways. So with that, one of the things that we're really thinking about is, well, what do we really know? There's a lot that seems amorphous, but what do we really know? And so Charlie's going to walk us through, what is it that we know?
Give us a one.
Sure, got it.
You can summarize a lot of this intro as helping people find tolerance when they're uncomfortable. It's kind of our working tagline.
And thank you, AV person, for upping my mic. It's gotten much easier for me.
Okay. We wholeheartedly believe that conflict is inevitable. We don't shy away from it, and we don't want to pretend like it's not going to happen. And we also want to acknowledge that we can work through it. So, our dear friend, we took this quote because it's so good and it just embodies what we believe, which is, if you have no conflict in your life, there are two things that must be true. Either one of two things that are true. One is you're either dead, not breathing, heart's not working, or you're not paying attention to the people around you. And yes, we're talking both about big, massive conflict, as well as in our world, high school students go out to lunch. One group wants to go to Chipotle, the other wants to go to Qdoba. How do you solve that, right? So we want to alleviate this idea that conflict is the biggest beast in the world, but we can also bring it down to these things that are important to us. So again, conflict is nothing to shy away from, and we want to provide skills to work through them.
So in the presenters before have been talking about the village. We've heard that.
Right.
One of the things we really want to, I think, hone in on is look at how messy the village can be. So it does take a village to raise a child or to have a productive workplace, but the village is always going to be messy. People have different values. They bring different values. They bring how they express their anger or their conflict in the village. People get angry in different ways, or they express it in different ways. The village, we have a national village that is really in crisis about how we handle things. But so we have a national village, we have a community village, we have a neighborhood village. Think about, for those people who have children, school is a village, but people have different ways of being in that village. And it's so common for people to say, this person's in my village, but they are completely insane. I hate them. or they're raising people or doing things that I don't agree with, that I fundamentally don't agree with. So how do I stay in place with that person? How do I talk to that person? And so that framing of it is messy and it is always going to be messy is important. And so we're going to show you something that we think, and again, this is a discussion of ideas, is that we want to give you something that we go over with young people quite a bit, and then frame it for the workplace. So bullying and how we define it is repeatedly abusing or threatening to abuse power against another person. In Texas, about a year ago, they took out the repeated abuse, and it's actually just one act can get you like seriously in trouble at school, by the way. But what is it? And so bullying is about stripping people of their dignity, of their worth. And it is really about essentially like how is somebody perceived? That's why bullying is important, because it always goes down to racism, different kinds of bigotry, homophobia, sexism, how gender is expressed, your socioeconomic class, and it is always tied to things like the way we have identified you, you don't have the right to exist. Now, drama, and we operate, of course, a lot in drama and bullying, is a conflict that's serious to the people involved, but not taken seriously by the people who are entertained by it. We live in a culture that is constantly trying to convince us to be entertained by other people's humiliation and embarrassment. That is one of the normalizations of our culture that is highly problematic. And so when we are thinking about this, we also think, and this is a question for you all for further discussion maybe in the afternoon, is that we know that kids hate talking about bullying in schools. The thing that we know is that we never want to be introduced as a bullying prevention specialist in front of a group of middle school or high school people, because we will spend the entire time having to regain our credibility, not just with the students, but with the teachers as well. They are bored with it. They think it's unrealistic, the way that people like us come and speak to them. It is oversimplistic, and it doesn't recognize the actual abuse of power that occurs. I'll give you just one example, which is that people like us will come and talk to kids in schools about bullying peer-to-peer, but never do people like us talk about adult abuse of power. Never. And adults and young people regularly experience and witness adults abusing power. Or they see a well-meaning adult look at another adult who's abusing power to a child, and that well-meaning adult doesn't say anything. And yet, one of the most common things we say to children is, and think about this for the workplace, if you're having a problem, go tell an adult. So we have to recognize the mess. And one of the things that we believe is that the kinds of programs oftentimes that are the equivalent for adults of a bullying prevention program in a school is similar, and that people are reacting to it as poorly, which is, it is unrealistic, I can't say what I really feel, this stuff is being forced down my throat, I hate this, and I'm just gonna do what I have to do, check the box and leave, and I'm gonna reinforce the positions that I actually had walking into that room, because I can't really say what I really feel. Because if I really say what I feel, my job is going to be threatened, or something's going to happen that's bad to me because I can't say what I truly feel. And when that happens, people are reinforced with the stuff that they actually believe. That is the space in which we're asking you to think about in all of the different capacities and content of what we talked about, of what you've been hearing today. So that's the first thing. And then I'm swapping it up to you. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I guess what's also coming up in my mind is a senior that I was talking with just the last week that said, like, we have had anti-bullying speakers come in, and it is the same thing since third grade. It's the same thing since third grade. Like, it doesn't match the complexity of my life. I am trying to get with girls for the first time. I now have a car. I am trying to figure out what to do, where to go to college, and yet I'm still being told one is the victim, one is the perpetrator. And why we decided to take the time to talk about this in front of you all who are working professionals is that we can relate this back to sexual harassment. So we can see an equivalent to sexual harassment training or protocols or any of those words that you hear, like, oh, I just have to go do this, it's mandatory, I'll go check the box, and then I'll come back and do this work. And then while you're there, the other side of your brain's like, I have all of these emails piling up, which does a complete disservice to what the training should and ought to be. So we're here today to try to blend this gap, and I guess we can have a little plug for our advertisement.
Of our breakout.
Of our breakout. So come check us out, because that's what we're gonna do this afternoon.
Okay, all right, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so You ready?
Yeah,
I find this to be highly amusing, so I'm just going to watch you people while he does this.
So,
And we designed this just for you.
right. So if you get really excited, you can stand up. If you don't get that excited, you can just count on your fingers. Okay. So we're going to go through a list of things that you may or may not be able to relate to. And again, I'm not going to be here to like yank teeth to say, oh, who can relate to the first one? We're not in the business of doing that. So keep track of how many of these things you can relate to. All right. So, number one, I have pretended to be more confident in my work than I really feel. Anyone wants to like jump up and say, "Yeah, me"? That's okay. Okay. Number two, my integrity or competence has been questioned by my boss. 3, I have been pulled into a conflict between other adults at work. And you could play with like a bullying issue or drama issues, just another conflict. Remember, we're using that term loosely. I think we're on 4. I have dreaded going to work. Think maybe thoughts that you remind yourself of the thoughts in the shower or in the car right before you go into the building.
Ready?
Number 5, I have been undermined by someone I work with. Next, I have been bullied by someone I work with. I have heard something racist, sexist, and or homophobic and didn't know what to do. Maybe for a bonus point, you could say, and there was a timeline from which I just was supposed to get training on how to do it. Okay? I didn't know the answer to a question, so I just made something up. Okay? And then the last one, I have seen another adult disrespect a colleague, and I didn't handle it in the way that I would have liked to. All right, I think we are at 7. 8? How many?
I think so. 1,
8?
2,
Okay.
9.
Thank you. There are no bonus points if you have all 9. But I would be willing to bet that we have a significant amount of similar experiences here. We go through this because if you can relate to any one of these things, this is social emotional learning in practice. And we say this in practice because there is probably no right answer. There is no like silver bullet that will take down that mean bully that somebody you work with. And as adults, we are expected to have our prefrontal cortex solidified by the age of 25. And we know that in brain science. So we don't have quite the excuse that we allow our young people to have. Now think about that. How many times can you relate to these? And it might not be just once. But again, this is the practice in working to manage ourselves amongst these challenges.
And what we're doing also is saying this is what being able to be competent, socially competent looks like. You're going to be able to, you're going to be dealing with these problems, you're going to deal with them well, or you're going to deal with them poorly. And so being able to focus on them as a way of competence when you are in the workplace, regardless of what you do, gives people a way to be able to visualize the problems that they're going to be dealing with. Okay? All right, let's go. Oh, you forgot the last one.
Okay, this was the 10th. Sometimes I feel like the only person in my life that gets me is my pet. You know? Okay, so there's a bonus 10, you know, so up your answer for one more if you're like, no one gets me. Okay, onward. So we're going to frame this as what we do with a lot of educators, but this plays a role in our lives because it's not, and I'm sharing our hand right off the bat, poor poker player. This is not just youth needs. So as we roll through this, please keep in mind for yourself, please keep in mind if you are overseeing any young person that it might apply, it might work with your partner. So leading out is what young people need in order to flourish, or what we believe all people need in order to flourish, is first, a sense of belonging and membership. You walk around this campus, take for just this example, how many Microsoft swag things do you see? It is a branding, it is I'm a part of this group, I'm a part of this team. We're in Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks, like you see that nasty, I'm a Bronco fan, I'll just put that out there. You see that nasty green, that lime green everywhere. But the reason that it's there is because you belong here, right? If you're a Seahawk fan, welcome in. Membership. Okay, next, safety and structure. This could mean you have a desk. This can mean that you have a way to get into the building safely, right? Actual structure can mean you have a regular meeting every week. Next, self-worth and ability to contribute. In the workplace, ability to contribute can vary, and we've heard a lot of different speeches early before us talk about accessibility in ways to contribute. So keep that in mind as we go through this list. Ability to reflect and assess. So in our world, this highlights the importance to put your phone away at night because you need some time to just reflect on what happened in the day.
Right?
Yeah.
It is also that we're living in a world where you can't make mistakes, right? And if you make a mistake, then all of a sudden you're incompetent or you have no integrity. And so one of the things that I think is one of the most important that we're looking at in institutions, I don't care what the institution is to be able to build into the institutional framework the ability to reflect and assess it as institutional value, or as what Charlie would say, an essential agreement in the institution. If we don't have that, then people will react instantly, and they'll react from a place of anxiety and wanting to solve the problem right away. And when that happens, you rarely solve the problem effectively.
Right. Independence and control over one's life. So this is, I don't know if they're micromanaging managers in this room, but this is why people react to this, because you need to have a little bit of control over one's life. And again, we can isolate one of those, but we can also see this in the stack. So number 6 gets us to the place of closeness with at least one lasting relationship. When you're young, that does not mean your parents, and when you're older, that does not mean only your work colleagues. So this is why we really value relationships. We are in the business of bringing people closer together around hard topics, not pushing them apart. I think that's 6. I don't trust myself now. Competency and mastery. Think karate. That when you reach black belt, you are far from a master. There is so much work to do. So it's the understanding that I'm really good at this and I can continue to get better. So this stack of 7 is what we encourage you to look at and use back when you go home to wherever workplace it is as a way to understand, how do I bring people apart into our community, into our corporation? How can I take care of them as we go forward? Now, the next piece, I'll get through this quickly, is what we're calling a spectrum of attitudes. So there's a couple different ways to look at people. You put them all up and then I'll talk about them at once. So people viewed as objects, recipients, and resources. And quickly, an object, and let me preface it this way. We are all 3 at different times in our lives, different moments in a week. I'm not saying that you're only an object when you're young, although we treat young people more as objects than either of us really like to see. But an object, think in the post office, you're waiting in line, or any line. You're waiting in line as an object to serve the greater purpose of efficiency. We pay taxes. We do all kinds of things for another purpose. Recipient is, please join us in this conversation, but we're not really going to ask much of you because we think that you will be a part of this to serve your future. So you're exposed to a type of conversation, the beginnings of decision making, but we're not going to actually take what you have to say or your knowledge as what is the next step, which is a resource, which is we will make a better decision because you are in the room and a part of this process. So those are the 3 ways that we see how schools especially use their faculty, their parents, and their student body. But we bring this to you as a way to look at how you are treating employees. Because there are times, and again in the school, I'll use the school example because that's our home base. In school, you need to get out during a fire drill. Students are treated as objects, right? Teachers are treated as objects because we need to keep track. Then, how do we bump that line up? Because we want to be valued, and all individuals want to feel like they're a resource that can contribute to their larger group. Am I missing anything here?
If you're doing any kind of diversity training, sexual harassment training, anything like that, what we're really also saying to you is don't do it unless you use the people in your workforce as the resource. Right. Because otherwise they will resent the information or they will not engage. When we work with people and we go into schools and institutions, we always in advance talk to the people who are going to be receiving the information to go with them and work with them so that when we get there, we have set that foundation of we respect where you're coming from. We've taken the time to be able to see where you're coming from. We value that. Okay? So the last thing actually I'm gonna go through with you is this. So we need to remember that all people want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be understood, and they want to feel safe. These are the things that they want. So framing that, I'm going to end it. The last sort of concept we're going to go over with you is one of the things that we think is a huge challenge, is how do we talk to people? So even just if you come to our keynote and you don't come to the breakout, we wanted you to have some concrete skill, like here's how the approach is, that when somebody as an employee comes to a supervisor or comes to a colleague and is having a problem, there are things to say and there are things not to say. There are things that engage and connect, and there are things that disengage and take away. And so here's something that people very understandably had the experience of being incredibly frustrated. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Why did you wait so long? I have done all of these seminars, all of these trainings about what you should do, and you sat there and you didn't say anything until this thing is blown up in our face. I could have done something much better if you had come to me before. That disengages and shames people, and they will not come forward again. So here is a suggestion that we are saying instead. Whenever it feels right for you, I would really like to know why you didn't come to me sooner. Because we know that if a person can actually figure out the answer to that, that is the solution right there. Why didn't that person want to come? Because the reason that they didn't come, there was a very good reason. You've got to figure out what that reason is. So it goes from a moment of pulling away and disengagement into a totally transforming moment of now I have even more credibility to want to talk to you about what's really happening. We also believe that when somebody comes to you with a problem, that the most important thing that people need to be saying to each other is some variation of this. I am really sorry that this happened to you. Thank you for telling me, because it's a leap of faith to talk to somebody. And one other part you can say is, and together, maybe we can't solve the problem 100%, but we can think a way through it. And so it goes from, kids are no different from adults in feeling like, a lot of adults feel like asking for help is a weakness. And that they should, because we're adults, that we should be able to take care of all of these things. We should be able to handle it. We should be mature enough. We shouldn't let these things get us down. We're weak if we ask for help. But what we're saying is that if we can change the entire concept of asking for help as a capacity and a strength instead of a weakness, then what you get are people, regardless of the very important ways in which they are feeling silenced or feeling demeaned, that there are very different reasons why people feel that way. And the path that they got there, or the reasons they're feeling that, are essentially important and need to be respected. And within that is being able to say to people, whatever that reason is important. And I am so sorry that that happened to you. Thank you for telling me. And together, we're going to think through what is the best way to do it. And when we have those kinds of concrete paths, again, people feel even more credibility to be able to say, I trust the process. Instead of saying, which I believe is happening, and Charlie and I see all over the country, from high schools to any kind of institution with young people or adults, is that one of the things that we are really up against is people feeling like, I cannot speak. If I speak, I will be slammed for it. And we have got to be able to be in that space with people to say, it is okay to speak your mind. And we are going to assume the best of intent with people, unless we have some other reason to think not. We are going to give each other a break. We are going to think the best. We are going to step into these conversations. We are going to be able to handle things that come to us. And we are going to have messy conversations because we care about this connection. Because the stronger connection we can have, the stronger our working environment is going to be. And if we don't have that, then the workplace feels unsafe for everybody. And we want to be able to transform that to be a place that people feel safe. Thanks very much for having us. And thanks for listening to my croaky voice. Oh, lunchtime. I think it's lunchtime.
It is lunchtime. Hi, I'm just going to say a couple things, and we're going to, thank you guys, sorry. It is lunchtime, and the lunch is waiting for you right out in the hallway. We want...
Great.
Thank you. We want you to grab a plate and get to your breakout sessions. They begin at 12:30. I believe there is a slide in case you need to remember which one. where you're going, which one you signed up for earlier. So these are your breakout choices. They'll begin at 12:30, and then we will see you all back here at 1:45.